Are Google's new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro worth getting excited about?
And what's big at PAX in Melbourne?
Hi there. Welcome back to Vertical Hold Behind the Tech News, the award-winning tech podcast where we catch up with Australia's leading tech journalists to dive into the big tech stories of the week. I'm Alex Kidman, joined as usual by Adam Turner, and this week we're doing something a little bit different. We've split the podcast in two, and we've reintroduced time travel.
Huzzah!
Get a pen and paper, people, because this might get a little bit complicated to balance in your heads. This week, Google has announced one of the worst kept secrets in all of technology, the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro. And I caught up with the team from WhistleOut and Reviews.org to discuss Pixels and what they can do. But I did that last week. I hopped in the Vertical Hold Time Machine and recorded all of that last week. And then this week, but a week forward from when I'm talking about it, Adam's headed to PAX Aus in Melbourne to check out what's new and hot in gaming. So some of this you're going to be listening to from the perspective of a week ago from when you're listening to it, and some of it contemporary from when you're listening to it, unless, of course, you're listening to this episode some weeks from now, in which case it all took place in the past. Are we all clear on this, people?
Absolutely.
Good. It's clear as mud. Well, first of all, I caught up with Alex Choros, Adam Smith, and Fergus Halliday to talk everything Pixel. So time once again to do a little bit of time travel here at Vertical Hold, because by the time you're hearing this, Google will have held its latest Pixel launch event, but we are recording it the week before, just after the Australian media launch. And I'm joined here by Adam Smith from Reviews.org, and Fergus Halliday from Reviews.org.
Hello.
And Alex Choros from WhistleOut /Reviews.org.
Yeah, the WhistleOut expanded cinematic universe.
Exactly. I'm just surrounded here, people. Just surrounded here. So, first and foremost, obviously, we've just been briefed on what Google will be releasing here in Australia. Adam, what are we getting?
So, a whole slew of devices, all of which we kind of expected. The Pixel 8, the Pixel 8 Pro, the Pixel Watch 2, a couple new colors of the Pixel Buds Pro. So, but even though we're recording this a week before you would have known this, let's be honest, you already knew this because pretty much everyone did.
Everything leaked.
Yes, as is Google's custom. So,
Custom or inability to hold the leaks in?
I mean, it was pretty clear that they were even in Google's own teasers, it was like, the Pixel 8 is coming, the Pixel Watch 2 is coming.
I am also subscribing to it's an inside job.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
We put it on the website. Our bad.
Who knew anything about the internet?
Oh, you're on the same day that Apple announced an event. That's weird timing. Really shouldn't have clicked that button.
So let's dive into specifics, having just had a very, very limited quantity of hands-on with the new devices. Let's start with the phones. Pixel 8. What's exciting in the Pixel 8, Alex?
The Pixel 8's a little bit smaller than the Pixel 7, so it feels like, small phones are kind of dying. Apple killed off the Mini this year, so it's nice to see that Google kind of shrunk the Pixel 8, made it a little bit smaller. It's still like a 6.1-inch screen.
Yeah, it's super cute.
Yeah, but it's definitely a lot more definitely a lot easier to use with one hand than, say, the Pixel 8 Pro. And it's nice that there is an option for people who prefer a smaller device.
Okay, and the 8 Pro obviously is the big lad of the family. Where do the differences, apart from screen size, where do the differences lie? And do they matter?
Well, Pixel 8 Pro does have an extra rear-facing camera. It's got a 5x telephoto lens, so if you want that extra photographic versatility, that's fair. And the 8 Pro also has a more dynamic refresh rate display. It can go from 1 to 120 Hz rather than just being a 120 Hz screen on the Pixel 8. The battery life on the Pixel 8 Pro is probably going to be a bit better from what we've seen in previous years. And while the Pixel 8 Pro's got a nice matte finish, while the standard Pixel 8 has a glossy back.
And Fergus, I believe they're playing around with the refresh rates on these screens.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing, obviously, standard 120 hertz for a premium device like this is always nice to see. I'm always very interested with the variable refresh rate stuff and how that may affect battery life in practice. Just given that you can have periods where you're not really using your phone and the refresh rate can go down, it can consume less power, and you can kind of get more bang for your buck in that way. I think the other big display call out is this Actua display stuff they're doing, which is designed to be brighter than previous Pixels, but also more resilient in daylight situations and make your phone more readable in under glare and stuff like that. That's all really exciting, but it's the kind of thing we really have to mess with the devices and go out and about in the world to kind of see if it really holds up to the hype.
Not in a well-lit briefing area.
No. I mean, they do look very bright in here, specifically.
And we're getting 120 hertz in the Pixel 8 for the first time.
Yeah, the Pixel 8 really feels like a lot more of a premium phone than the base 7 did. Like, it feels like, there's more going on with the cameras, better screen, more features. Like, it really feels like they've upped the game on the base model
It
this
can
year.
do macro photography, which it couldn't previously. I think one interesting call out while we're talking about displays is the Pixel 8 Pro no longer has a curved display. Google's gone flat.
Yeah, and it really looks nice. I've never had sort of the same hatred of curved displays as many of my peers.
It's
but
such a
it- but
divisive thing,
yeah,
though. I know I'm on your side with this. I don't hate them. I don't love them either. It's
Right,
just
yeah,
there.
but it does. It looks nice. The flatter display looks quite nice.
I think, we're kind of going to the point where bezels have gotten a lot smaller on phones. Like, manufacturers have worked out how to slim down the amount of space around a phone. And, like, when curved screens first made an appearance, they were more like an optical illusion to make a phone seem slimmer than it was. And now that phones are just naturally smaller thanks to, like, better display technology, you don't really need them as much, and phones kind of look nicer without them.
Can I say, I feel like you can see the bezels a bit more on the 8 Pro with the flat screen. I feel like I'm getting a bit more bezel action.
I feel like with the curved displays, they always look nicer in pictures, but then there are lots of like practical considerations that you get with curved edges, and I think that. And I think that's probably why we've seen this trend towards flat screens, is that initially it was very flashy to be the first brand to have these curved edges, but then once everyone had it, the practical concerns were a bit more front of mind for consumers.
One of the features I don't think I'd seen leaked extensively, but maybe I just wasn't looking in the right places, was the fact that they're bringing a secure face unlock. So they've had like standard photo, recognition thing, which you can get, on a $100 Android, let's face it, but it's about as secure as a wet rag. They're now saying this is like banking level secure. This is presumably matching what Apple does with Face ID. How important is that, Alex?
I think it's a great feature for parity with Apple. Like, if you are charging the same kind of money as Apple for a phone, you should have the same functionality. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in practice, because, like we've seen with a few first-generation Google products, that like when it first went to an in-display fingerprint scanner, that was pretty rough for the first time they did it, and it was improved a bit last year. But it took Google some work to actually make that pretty seamless. And we haven't had a chance to try this out ourselves yet, and so, I have questions about things like glasses and face masks and how they're going to affect it. Apple's been doing this since the iPhone 10, and the first generation of Face ID was a mixed bag.
Anyone know any twins?
Yeah, and I'll say the Face ID on the Pixel 7, the problem obviously was never that it wouldn't recognize your face. It was that it would recognize anything, So it would unlock your phone at the slightest glance in its direction. So it is good to see it more secure. And I think I'm less worried about it being a barrier than I am about it being genuinely secure.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting update, given that they had a more advanced face unlock in the Pixel 4 series and then kind of retired that technology and sort of almost took a step back to that more standard 2D mapping versus 3D depth mapping for the 5, 6, 7. And so, yeah, I think it's really interesting that they are bringing that feature back to the fore, but also they didn't really talk about some of the unique technology they had in the version of it that was on the Pixel 4 series.
That was Solly, if I'm
Solly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't remember the name of the startup or whatever it was.
Well, speaking of security, one of the surprises of this was their bump up to 7 years of OS and security and feature upgrades for this phone. That's big to my estimation. That's well ahead of what current best in class for Android, which I think is Samsung on 4 years.
Yes, Samsung 4 years of operating system updates and 5 years of security. Google was previously promising 3 years of OS and 5 years of security, so this is a big step up. And it really, I actually think it even beats Apple. Like Apple, you can kind of expect 5 to 6 OS updates.
But they never really say anything right about it.
But this is good. I think
we're all in favor of this. I think we all think this is just generally net positive for
this
everyone.
rules. Hopefully, it's the kind of thing where okay, Samsung's going to see this and be like, oh, shit, I guess we should be doing this too. And it could see even Apple just be extend out iOS life. And I think it makes sense. Phones are getting better and better, and the processors even can play Resident Evil 7 now for some Resident Evil Village.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that phone could last 7 years.
I think it's a really interesting complement to the story that Google are also trying to tell with the Tensor processor and sort of positioning the Pixel not as a performance beast, but more as a platform for an unspoken future of different AI sort of centric experiences and stuff like that.
It's a really unique pitch compared to, you see Apple talking about things okay, you can play console quality games on your iPhone. You can plug it into your TV, and it is a console. You see Qualcomm talk about big year-on-year improvements in their Snapdragon processors, and ray tracing and all these flashy big numbers going up, kind of data points. And Google's yeah, it's a bit better. Yeah, it does the things you want to do a bit better, and it's enabling new AI experiences, and that's a very different position than the rest of the industry.
Well, speaking of improving experiences, the other big new hardware piece here is the Pixel Watch 2. Adam, I know you're a man who's keen on Google hardware. Will you be strapping a Pixel Watch 2 to your wrist?
Yeah. I'm keen to see if it feels like more of a, I guess, necessary piece of my daily life than the Pixel Watch 1 did. It feels like they're bringing a lot more interesting features to it that I could see giving it a lot more utility. My initial impression, just looking at the features that they had, is that Pixel Watch 1 was a pretty good smartwatch for the money. This looks like it has the potential to be the best smartwatch for the money, given all the new features that they're introducing. I'll be interested to see if the build quality is similar to the one, or if it's gotten a bit better. They made a big point of talking about 24-hour battery life with always-on display, which the Pixel Watch 1. Their claim was 24-hour battery life, but there are a lot of asterisks to that. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the watch performs if it lives up to their claims.
Okay, so I did mention right at the start that we're kind of time traveling with this one because we are recording it ahead of when Google does its big hardware reveal. But listener, you are listening to this after the fact, so we don't know everything that they announce, and obviously sometimes they announce things, Pixel Fold, that do not come here. Gentlemen, each in turn, if there was a Google product that they were going to announce from our time perspective next week that wasn't coming here yet but might be coming here in the future perhaps, what would it be and why? Fergus, you go first.
I have a couple answers in my head, but I'm going to go with the one that's freshest on my mind, which is I just would love someone to absolutely just nail the concept of smart glasses.
Damn it!
I don't.
I was going to say Pixel Glass.
Obviously Google has that legacy of doing the Google Glass stuff, but it's one of those things where I just want headphones that are built into my glasses that have long battery life, and maybe there's some nice AI integration. I don't know if I need full Facebook Ray-Ban cameras in them, but there's room for me to be carrying one less device in my life, and if that could be my headphones, because I've got audio coming through my glasses, I would absolutely go for that. And I think Google have a good approach to it in terms of their AI and stuff.
Alex?
Fergus took smart glasses, so now I'm just going to wing it. And I think, Google's going to do a surprise release of a new Android TV. And it's going to be a little
TV flat channel thing, or...
Oh, no, like a new
box.
Chromecast. A new Chromecast.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to support 8K for some reason, and it'll come with 6 months of YouTube Premium free.
Okay, and Adam?
There's one thing that I know that they won't announce because they would have announced it today, but I would have really liked to have seen is a larger case size option for the Pixel Watch. Look,
Like a 47 mil or a big chunky watchy
exactly.
kind of thing.
Exactly. So
Pixel Watch Ultra.
Yes, I have a relatively slender wrist, and so it sits pretty well on my wrist. If it were much bigger, it would look comically small. I would like to see them release a watch so gargantuan that is an affront to God himself, and is
your wrist is kind of dragging at the ground from the weight.
Essentially like carrying a grandfather clock around.
I'm just thinking of...
what's that Nubia one? The one that there was like a screen that wrapped around your whole arm.
I was thinking like Flavor Flav.
Yes, exactly. Like a smart clock I can wear around my neck on a chain.
I get the feeling Google is listening because we are recording this at Google HQ, I should point out.
On a Pixel.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on brand here at Vertical Hold. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. Now, as is traditionally the case, now is the time for you to promote where you work, where you are on social media, any work that you've done recently that you want to, or your favourite lasagna recipe.
I have a really good lasagna recipe that uses brisket and pancetta rather than just like mince. And whenever I buy like 500 grams of pancetta, I get weird looks. It's like, why are you buying so much pancetta? And it's like,
No,
Alex, that's your turn. Fergus?
You can, if you, like me, have abandoned Twitter/X and gone to Threads, you can find me there at CVAMPEDOZ, CVAMPEDOZ. I will share links to my work, fun articles I read, and just general vibes. It's a good time.
Yeah, and I think for all of us, the big thing that we want to push is our own upcoming podcast, We Review Stuff. It's the podcast where we review stuff. The first
Don't give the secrets away too early.
I know. It's spoiler alert. The first episode should be coming up in a couple weeks' time, and the thing that sets this apart is that we will review anything, right? And we will definitively rank it on a list of all things that are objectively ranked by quality. So, for instance, yes, the iPhone 15 is a great phone, but is it as good as Soft Shell Crab? You can find out by listening to We Review Stuff.
wherever you get your podcasts.
Can't wait. Thanks for your time, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Enjoying the show? That's great. Don't forget to subscribe, which you can do on every podcast platform you've ever heard of. Just search for Vertical Hold or go to our website, verticalhold.com.au, where we've got handy buttons for every single podcast platform.
So this week we've taken Vertical Hold on the road again, and I'm here at PAX Aus in Melbourne, and I've caught up with David Smith and Emily Spindler from Kotaku Australia. Welcome back to the pod, David.
Hello, mate. Good to see you.
Emily, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So, David, it's still day one, I know, but what's impressed you so far?
Oh, man, what's impressed me so far? Super Mario Brothers Wonder is very, very cool. It's good to see Nintendo back on the show floor at PAX again. They weren't here last year. We wondered if they would be back, and they are. That, so far, I think has been my big pick for the show so far.
Emily?
Honestly, I would also have to agree that Super Mario Bros. Wonder has been fantastic. That is one of the main things that David and I have checked out so far because it's been pretty busy. However, I would also say that just the whole indie section is very impressive. It's fantastic to see lots of local games getting their time in the sun and seeing lots of people actually properly lining up to try out these games from our local devs.
Yeah, I know, because I come each year and my kids come as well, and that's where we tend to spend the most time. Is there anything else? Because I noticed there's some same faces you see year after year in the indie section, and then new splashes come along. Is there anything in particular that's jumped out at you?
Look, there's a few that I consistently wax lyrical about, and I will continue to until they're released. Dark Web Streamer being the main ticket. They have a fantastic setup this year as well. It's full ritual space, rose petals, candles, the whole shebang. And just for context for those listening, the game is about being a streamer on the dark web, as the name suggests, and dealing with the paranormal. So that one is really, really cool. And then I have just given Broken Roads a go as well. So that's a RPG, kind of like OG Fallout inspired Mad Max vibes in the Australian outback, and it was really, really good. And I apparently did very well because I rescued a bunch of sheep and actually did chores on a farm. Apparently a bunch of people don't do that, and I was like, that's what the game tells you to do. But yeah, no, so that was absolutely fantastic. Beyond that, there's just too many to go through, so I'm going to have to pick those two for now.
That does sound like a very Australian environment.
Absolutely. There's an ability called a punt in the game where basically if you can't meet a skill check, you have punt points and you can take a punt to try and match the skill check. It's perfection. It's so good. It's very Aussie and I love it.
So, David, what caught your eye in the indie section?
Oh my gosh. There was one that we saw at Free Play Parallels last night. Free Play Parallels is a series of talks by local game developers on what's coming up, what they're working on, and it's called the Dungeon Experience. It's Emily's cheering. It's a new Dungeons & Dragons styled RPG in which you're befriended by a little crab who's very good at the saxophone, as it turns out. It's really different. It's really funny. It's made by a guy named Jacob Januka, who people might have heard of. He makes very funny games very, very quickly. If anybody saw like the blueprint for the 8-bit Seinfeld RPG that came out on Twitter last year, Jacob was behind that. He's a very talented Australian developer. He's working with a great team. It looks very, very funny. Definitely encourage you to look it up. What else have we got? What else have we seen? The Godfeather as well. I saw those guys right inside the doors as we came into the expo hall. That's a game about playing a pigeon in a city and you poo on people, which is, as a mechanic, is different, certainly. But I thought it was very, very funny. I can see a lot of people seeing that, being drawn in by the really cute little artwork that they've got for it. There's a ton of really great Aussie stuff. There's a lot of New Zealand stuff this year as well. Really happy to see those guys coming over from Code NZ, really getting like a big space to strut their stuff. That's very cool, very different, very new for us.
So you mentioned Nintendo, and they kind of stand out as the big name. If you know nothing about games and you recognise one name on the floor, it's Nintendo. But I know other years we've seen like the likes of your Microsofts here, your Sonys here. Why has that changed, and do you think it's likely to change back?
It's a good question about whether it will change back. The reason it's changed, I believe, is because in the wake of the pandemic, as events like this started up again, there was a question of value. A lot of these publishers have moved to direct-to-consumer marketing. Nintendo itself does what it calls Nintendo Direct, quarterly video showcases, essentially. They fill them with trailers. Everyone gets to see what's coming out in the next few months at the same time. They don't need to go to the expense of building a huge booth at a convention like this and showing their game off to people in person when they can just blast it out over the internet. That has certainly been the strategy for PlayStation and for Xbox, who've been doing very, very successfully in that area. Nintendo wasn't here last year. PlayStation wasn't here last year. Xbox wasn't here last year. Bethesda wasn't here. Bethesda has returned this year. Nintendo has returned this year. I am interested to see if the other of the big three follow them back as well. Whether they will or not, I don't know. I know that some of them have off-site events this year. You can go and, I think, Bethesda's got a big Elder Scrolls Online event off-site that you can go and check out in one bar in the city or another. But whether they bring that all back in-house, back under one roof, I don't know. It might be that this becomes a South by Southwest situation where it slowly takes over the CBD and PAX becomes not just the convention center, but a hub and spoke deal where you've got the convention and then all this other stuff around it.
Yeah, CES in Vegas is a lot like that too. Yeah. Emily, is there any one big or small that you wish was here?
Honestly, I do wish that Sony was here just because PlayStation good. Don't quote me on that. But no, I think that it would be fantastic to see more of those kind of major teams coming back, because I think that's like always been the pull of PAX. Like, well, at least initially for me, and then that's what drew me into then check out all the indies and things like that. And I think that for a lot of people who are maybe not as invested in kind of those indie titles and they do want to come for the big names, not having them can be a drawback. I know multiple people that didn't attend this year because they were like, oh, it's only a couple of large names. So I think it would be good to have them back, but at the same time, I think that the show floor looks pretty packed as is. So whether they come back or not, who knows?
It's funny how that's changed over the years. Like PAX kind of revolutionized its own. This was the version of direct to consumer previously, right? This was a piece of something like E3, a media only event on a public scale that anybody could come to and attend and get that experience. And now even that direct to consumer approach has changed dramatically again. It's hard to know where it goes from here, whether the expo hall grows or shrinks. It feels like it's in a state of flux at the moment. We've grown again this year. Will it change again next year? We will have to wait and see if Nintendo gets the value out of being back here. If they did, we know that everybody talks. The Australian industry in particular is particularly small. If Nintendo finds success, I am sure the other of the PlayStation and Xbox will look to return as well.
Is part of the issue also that we're not at the hype or launch point of any particular new console, any particular new technology? Like there was a year when everything was VR and VR was the next big thing. There's, when the various PlayStations, the various Xboxes come up. Emily, is there anything at the moment that's that next big thing, or do you think we're in a bit of a lull there?
To be honest, I feel like the level of hype that came with VR when it was kind of first being brought to market, but also a lot of like the big titles, for example, like when Cyberpunk 2077 was about to launch, that level of hype in that era I think is well and truly gone. I don't think that we have, or at least I personally don't feel like I've experienced the level of excitement and hype for a presentation or anything like that since E3 2019, I think it was, where Keanu Reeves told someone they were breathtaking and everyone was like, wow, this is amazing, and everyone was really excited about games. And I just don't think that is kind of the culture of like games media, games developers, or gaming fans. Like they still love their video games, they bloody love them, but it's just not to that extent anymore. I think people are kind of chill about it. They express it in a different way. So I don't think that there's anything that could really be coming up soon that would replicate that kind of energy. But I mean, I could be wrong. Who knows?
At least until Nintendo announces a Switch 2.
Oh, yes. Once a Switch 2 comes out, then everyone's going to go feral.
And if they announce it this afternoon before this podcast comes out, we're going to look really stupid. Let's work on the assumption they won't.
They will, and now you've said that, they're gonna.
I bloody wish, but,
But in some ways, does that make for a better show because it's more even? There's not that one thing that everyone wants to queue up for 2 hours to do, but there's that better spread of things.
I definitely think that can be a benefit. I haven't been able to get a proper view of the whole show floor to see if there is those 2 hour lines. I remember a few years back waiting in line to play the upcoming Kingdom Hearts demo, and that was a 2 hour line. That was horrific. Yeah. So I think having people more spread out and people checking things out more like evenly is always fantastic. And I think that kind of comes into like the fact that tabletop has also really sprung up since just before lockdown. I think that's become a much bigger section. People are more keen to try playing new tabletop games and look for little dice and dice towers and stuff like that. Whereas before, there was people who were keen on that, but it was a much smaller section. People weren't kind of coming for that. They were coming to just check out Nintendo or just check out Sega or things like that. So, yeah, I think it's good that there's a more even spread now.
Man, I queued up in 2017 for 2 hours to play Evolve. You can't even play that game anymore. Like, they pulled it down. It's gone. The servers are dead. 2 hours of my life I will literally never get back.
It is interesting what you're saying about the tabletop section, and I noticed that every year it gets bigger, but what tends to get bigger is the amount of space where you can sit around on a table and play a game. And I think that's a big part of PAX. It's not just to come and look at the shiny things behind the glass.
Absolutely, and I think that people, as time goes on, become more and more comfortable with the idea of playing with strangers in that kind of tabletop context. I know that maybe like 6 years ago when I started playing D&D, I would absolutely not have played with a group of strangers, but then lo and behold, not even 12 months ago, sitting at a table with a bunch of strangers doing a media game of Spelljammer, met David for the first time at that game.
Yeah. That was cute. It was we did a D&D evening that was over at Melbourne Central. It was like upstairs. They put a little like I don't know, it was kind of like a
Planetarium.
yeah. Put one little planetarium together and we played D&D in there. I've played pickup games of D&D here at PAX as well, like down in the tabletop section. It's some of the best stuff I've ever done at the show. Like, you make friends very, very quickly at the table. Like, everybody's got a different play style and you've got to figure out how to work together. That is a new wrinkle for that kind of a game. I love that aspect of the show. Like, there's always, we talked a lot about the expo hall in this podcast already, but the tabletop section is often the unsung hero of this whole section of the show. There's so much interesting stuff, particularly among the Australian cohort, that is happening in tabletop, and a lot of it is here this weekend. I'm very keen to go down there, find out what's going on, get an update on what particularly is happening in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, while obviously Dungeons and Dragons really has everyone in a chokehold, and there is a massive D&D stall, I believe, here, which I haven't been able to check out just yet, but I am very keen to. I think that there's so many other tabletop games, as I will consistently rage to people about, to play, and I think that there's plenty to give a go in the expo hall, and a bunch of like little indie ones as well, emerging ones, Kickstarter projects, which is just fantastic. I think it's nice to see that kind of realm expanding even further, and just like the regular punter keen to give it a crack as well.
Yeah. It's exploded after COVID in particular. Like, once everybody came out of lockdown, the thing everybody wanted to do was spend time together, and tabletop games let you do that immediately. Like, you all get to sit around a table, be in each other's company, and share an experience together that you maybe can't get from playing a video game online, like over Discord or something like that. It contributes to making that part of this show really, really special, and something I look forward to checking out every year.
One of the other things that is sort of almost like the hidden gem, but it's not really hidden, is PAX is not just the show floor. Like, the show floor is split in half. The front half is your Nintendos and your other people, your indie section. Your back half is a lot of tabletop stuff, some free play stuff. But then there's the plenary off to the side with all the theatres in it. That seems to get bigger every year. I would think if I had a 3-day pass, that's probably where I'd be spending a lot of my time.
That was where I spent most of my time before I was working in media. When I was coming here with a 3-day pass I bought myself, that was all I wanted to do, was hit the panels that are over on the plenary side. There is so much interesting conversation going on around games by people who are making games, who are commenting on games. It's my favorite part of the show, I think. Like, it's the sort of thing, like, it allows me to use PAX. I think I said this on your podcast last year, but I will say it again. It's part of the show that allows me to use it as a creative recharge. I hear from people who are really, really good at what they do and know an awful lot about what they do, and that just fires me up so much. I love hearing from them. I love learning about the craft and what they're doing to build these really interesting, unique, and intricate games. It's a big contributor to why I describe this show as my personal Burning Man, because I come out of it every year fired like a rocket. If you are coming to PAX at any point over the weekend, download the app onto your phone and check out what's going on among the panels, see what's happening, get along if you can, line up early, get over there like half an hour early to line up, because the theatres can fill up. It is well worth it. You will learn so much that you didn't know about how video games are made.
Also, PAX is like David's Burning Man, because he comes out of it covered in dust, malnourished, and needing a week-long sleep.
It's true. I do need to go to sleep for like a week after.
And Emily, what's caught your eye over in the plenary amongst the theatres?
Honestly, panels are usually where I spend a little bit of my time. I always get very caught up in trying out all the games on the expo floor. However, I know that David went to the story time with Erika Ishii earlier this morning, or afternoon, I should say, and it was apparently fantastic. I am personally going to be watching probably the last few rounds of the Omegathon. I know that's a very basic answer, but I always find that the hype for that is very fun. And the, creative option they always pick for the grand finale game it's just mind-blowing. Like, the year that they did they played Crossy Road on a balance board. They just jerry-rig the weirdest games with the weirdest controllers, and I just think that's a lot of fun.
One year, the end of the Omegathon was competitive claw machine, and it was the hypest game I've ever seen. It was like, who knew that competitive claw machine would make an incredible spectator sport? Like, the best. I loved it. I remember it to this day.
And is there any other hidden gems? If people are getting here this weekend, getting a bit off the beaten track, what would you be tracking down?
I wouldn't say it's so much off the beaten track, but I'll always give a shout out to the PAX Together Lounge because I think it is fantastic. Shout out to Alice Clark friend of the show for all of her wonderful work. So that is the lounge that is for queer folks like myself, and it is fantastic. It's a lot of fun. They've got a movie night, I believe. They've got little giveaways. They've got some stalls in there, and yeah, it's just always a good time. It's like a nice little retreat space for people. It's a good place to check out little games. I don't know. It's just a good time.
If you check out the PAX Together Lounge for no other reason, head up for the Xena 64 fighting game tournament that Alice runs every year. That game doesn't work. It doesn't matter if you think you know how to play it. You don't. Put whatever controls in you like. The game will do something random. You'll never know what happens next. It's the best fighting tournament at the show. Check it out.
Brilliant. Well, thanks both for your time and enjoy your PAX.
Thank you, mate. Pleasure to see you.
Thank you. It was lovely to see you.
Well, that just about wraps up this week's ep of Vertical Hold. Thanks to all our guests for joining us and for Adam for putting up with me jumping in and out of the Vertical Hold time machine all week.
I think I'm going to be sick.
Well, while Adam is sick, you can catch up with us at the Vertical Hold webpage via Facebook, Instagram. You can look up the two of us on Mastodon, Blue Sky, Threads, or that thing called X.
Thanks everyone for dropping by, and drop us a line. Let us know what you think of the new Google gear. Let us know what you thought of PAX, and just let us know what you think of life in general. Done.
Yep.
All right,
When
I
you
shall
stop.
hit
Yep.
stop.